Welcome back to Sandy's Paddling Podcast. This episode is another story from my dad, Tom Goynes, about his second attempt at the Texas Water Safari in 1968 with his older brother, Jim Goynes. So we left off on a sad note, but it was 1968 now, I guess, or spring of 1968. Y'all just done the Lake Houston race with you and Uncle Jim. And I did mean to ask because Uncle Jim was highly motivated by snakes. Did y'all catch snakes, or was that just a promise, an empty promise?
Every now and then, a snake would be caught. I only think of one instance where we were actually paddling down a river on a training run, and a snake was swimming across the river, minding its own business, and Jim said, "I think we can catch that snake." And I said, but you don't have anything to put it in. Like, normally you'd have an aquarium or at least some kind of wire basket. And we were in that Sawyer Super that we bought from Narramore Nolan.
That's a fairly tippy boat. That's not a stable boat.
It's not anything like the Sabre, so it's pretty stable.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, it's a pro boat, basically. So
okay.
Not the end of the world. But it was fairly, short in the stern. They were like 10 inches deep in the stern and 15, maybe 20 in the bow. But anyway, Jim said, "I don't think it can climb up over the sides of the canoe." So he caught it, and he was paddling stern, I was up in the bow. And I've always said snakes are like cats. You know, if you have 10 people in a room and there's 9 cat lovers and only one cat hater, the cat's going to go to the lap of the hater. And here we had a canoe with the guy in the stern loved cats, the bowman not so much, but it came to my end of the boat and coiled around my feet.
Oh, no.
So I said, "Jim, are you sure the snake isn't poisonous?" Because we didn't know they were venomous. They were all poisonous to me, but he said, "I think it's a diamond-backed water snake."
Not a water moccasin.
Diamond-backed rattlesnakes, that's what it looked like to me. It had diamonds and anyway, but it was a water snake. They are kind of aggressive though, so you have to be kind of careful handling them. But he did all that, but it was wrapped around my feet, so that was an uncomfortable training run. But I did need a partner, so it was worth putting up with a few incidents like that.
Y'all didn't catch snakes during the race, though. I assume that was kind of off limits.
No, but there was a time when we went under, it was during the safari, I think, and there were a lot of trees down in the early river, even above the Blanco. And we were going under a fallen tree, and I grabbed a hold of a limb, and it moved, and I realized my hand was around the snake, and I was looking eye to eye with whatever this was. So I just hollered snake and let it go, and Jim was able to identify it and make sure it wasn't harmed in any way. But that was actually not an attempt to catch the snake, fortunately, because we didn't really have time to do that.
Well, you probably didn't have anybody to hand it off to either. You would have had it in the boat for a long time.
Yeah, team captains hadn't been invented yet, so you couldn't just say, "Here, take this, team captain." Anyway.
So 68, where did the race end in 68? Was that Seadrift?
Nope, it ended in Port Lavaca.
Oh, okay.
So we did have a coastal portion. I raced a couple of years, I guess just 68, 69, and 70, all 3 years finished in Port Lavaca.
Okay.
So I got to see.
How many more miles is that? Is that like 30?
Oh, no, it's a little more than that. Maybe 50 miles, because the first day was pretty long. You went all the way from Seadrift to Port O'Connor, and that was probably at least 20 miles. And then you had a fairly short day to Magnolia Beach, and then another short day from there into Port Lavaca. Mostly they just wanted the race to start on a Saturday and end on a Saturday. So you had until Wednesday morning to get to Seadrift. Then I guess we paddled Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. Maybe we didn't start until Thursday morning, because I think we had 30 days. So we must have started Thursday morning, which gave people all day Wednesday and all night Wednesday night.
Okay.
As long as they were in by the time the gun went off Thursday morning, they could continue on.
Wow.
Yeah.
So your training probably went better than your first year with Uncle Jim. At least you had a good boat. Did you ever trade in the paddles that you had made with the shingles for real paddles? Or
We did. Not only that, but we also decided sculling was the way to go. So we rigged a sculling seat for the bowman. So we would paddle until we hit nice wide open river, and then the oars came out. So we got technical advice from Fred Hurd. I've talked a little bit about Fred. He came in second in the very first water safari, and he knew how to build a sliding seat for sculling. We used pulleys from an aircraft pulleys, and those were our wheels. And we had tracks made of aluminum T, I believe it was. And you would basically pull on the oars as you pushed with your legs, so you would push the seat backwards to propel the boat forward, you might say.
So it didn't add a ton of weight to the boat to do that? Or
we had some very light rigging. I think that year we actually used aluminum. I don't remember if we had some welding done or what, but I think our outriggers were fairly lightweight, and the seat was light.
Wow.
Fred helped us. He knew how to really keep the weight down.
Because I remember that year in the 90s when Pat Patrisky made his little, they could paddle or row. It weighed a ton. I think it probably added 90 pounds. It was what I recall. He said it just weighed a bunch. But I guess you had something a little lighter and simpler maybe.
Yeah, a lot of people back in those days would use stainless steel for their outriggers. They were pretty beefy. I mean, they could hit a tree at full blast.
Oh, wow.
And it would just deflect the canoe to the side. And the boats had to be pretty stiff, because when you lifted the oars out of the water, it put a lot of torque on the
gunnel
side
area
of the canoe. So the gunnels had to be very stout. The boats weighed a lot. I mean, they still kept them as light as they could, but they were heavier than the boats that were paddled. For sure.
Did you beef up your gunnels at all, or?
I think we somehow did. That super that we had was pretty beefy anyway by then.
Well, it had wrapped, and so you had
a lot of patches. So, and we probably put some V bracing in it. So I remember it being pretty stiff. It worked out okay.
But it was still you couldn't get water, no ice, nothing like that. So you were self-supported. Did Grandma follow you in that one too?
Yep. She was, by then she knew we weren't going to be with the leaders. So she was a whole lot closer to our schedule, and always there at the bridges. We didn't use the walkie-talkie anymore. I mean, we forgot about that form of communication. Although it used to be legal back in those days. You could, if you had a walkie-talkie, you could use it.
Did you upgrade your food? Did you bring that?
We did. Fred Hurd was very helpful. So we had some very light food for the river. And then for the bay portion, it was all freeze-dried. So we had freeze-dried, horrible tasting food.
I was going to say, how did you didn't have a stove or anything. You just let it kind of soak in water?
I don't remember if we had a stove. I know you could build a campfire, and traditionally there was a community campfire like at Seadrift, Port O'Connor. I think that might have been the year that somebody found some hooks at Port O'Connor, and there was always some fishing line around. So Jim and I were able to catch some hardhead, and the firewood was creosote.
Oh, no.
So we were roasting hardheads on a stick over the creosote fire, and we thought they were pretty good compared to the freeze-dried food we had. But I do remember it made us pretty sick. So
yeah,
it was not. I think the creosote was probably a mistake.
That doesn't sound good at all. What was the water level in that year?
Flooded. The river was very high, so we made really good time. I mean, we were flying, and I just remember we came through Gonzales really early in the morning, and we hadn't expected that. We thought that would be a much later time. It seems like we were in the top, I want to say the top 13 or something like that, but we were, there weren't that many people that finished, but we did finish fairly well by today's standards. It would be amazing to finish in the top 15 today. So. But it was a good race.
What kind of lights did you have?
Lighting was a little bit of a problem. Back in those days, there was a bulb made by GE with the number 965, a GE 965.
Ah, yes. Classic.
Gave a lot of light for about 15 hours. They had a fairly short shelf life. So you had it was kind of like a slow action flash cube, you might say. It would give you some light, but then it would burn out. And unfortunately, we did not have but one. And we soldered the wires straight onto the light bulb, and something went wrong. Maybe we did have a spare bulb, but I remember the second night, I was the one in the bow again. Jim was paddling stern. I don't think we were rowing. We weren't rowing at the time, but I was holding the light with the wires on the light bulb. Maybe the wires had pulled loose. I don't remember if the bulb had burned out. But every time we really needed to see, I would raise the light up to get a better look, and the wires would come off.
Oh, no.
So it was a long night. We didn't have any light at all most of the time. And we finally learned that just forget the light, get your eyes adjusted to the dark, and go for it.
Yeah, but in high water year, that can be exciting. Although less so on the second night, I guess.
The worst part about that, it was our first finish. And back in those days, once you left Highway 35, the Tivoli Bridge, and the locals pronounce it Tivola. But anyway, once you left that bridge, you could get to Seadrift however you wanted. They had no rules about the barge canal.
Oh, wow.
But unfortunately, nobody really taught much about the proper way to get to Seadrift. Nobody mentioned not taking trailer cut, for instance. It does seem like there was somebody on the bank that hollered something to the effect, stay right at trailer cut. And so we were kind of looking, but when you get the trailer cut, especially when the river's high, the whole river's going left. And as we went around to the left in the dark, I remember thinking, something went right back there.
Oh, no.
But we came out, and that what they told us was, when you get to the bay, just head for the lights of Seadrift, and then look for the flagpole. And it sounded pretty simple, but...
Did they still have the 7 lights or whatever on the poles?
The problem is, if you come out trailer cut, straight ahead of you is the Union Carbide plant.
Right, the plant.
So we just assumed, being from Houston, that Seadrift was a pretty big town.
Oh,
We had
no.
never been to Seadrift. And we wondered, how in the world are we going to find the safari people? Because it's a huge town. We could almost imagine seeing a sign that said Hilton,
Oh, no.
but of course it didn't. But we paddled as far as we could, and then we hit the shoreline because the bay is not really that wide there. So we took a right, which was actually the correct way to go, but we seemed to be going parallel to sea. We weren't getting any closer, so we said, let's go back behind the other way.
Oh, no.
So we turned around and went up into Mission Lake, and evidently we found one of the bayous, and they're notorious for having big alligators in them. And in the dark, we did hit something that really splashed a lot. So we must hit a gator. We finally turned around and went as close as we could get to the lights of Seadrift and decided, let's just carry the boat from here because it didn't look that far. So we went up and over a dike, and there was a body of, it looked like water, but it turns out it was some sort of Union Carbide dump.
Ew.
This was during the Vietnam War, 1968, and they were probably making some sort of Agent Orange, who knows what.
Yeah.
So I don't know what we paddled across, but I do know we got about halfway across this very strange smelling body of water. And I started complaining about how my hands were burning.
Ooh.
And it was kind of burning my nose. And Jim had the same problem. So it's a good thing we didn't turn over.
No.
But we got to the far side, got the boat out, portaged over that dike, and ended up in the barge canal. So we thought, okay, now all I have to do is ask somebody where in this town the safari is camped. Jim stayed with the boat, and I went looking for help. And there was a little guard shack.
Oh, no.
And we were on the left side of the barge canal, but we were on the right side of the highway. So not a lot of activity, just some barge docks and things like that. But there was a guard house, and I knocked on the door, and somebody said, come in. So I opened the door.
Oh, no.
Now, you got to understand, I'm wearing a headlight, because we did at least have a headlight on our head, but it was back in the days when there were wires that went from your headlight to your 6-volt battery that you wore on your belt.
So it looked like you had a bomb.
I was wired. And we were not fools. We knew we needed mosquito netting.
Oh, no.
So I was wearing a mosquito net mask with the headlight over the mask.
Oh, my gosh.
And carrying a fairly long paddle. Paddles were long in those days. So I had what appeared to be a weapon, wires, a bomb, and the entire group of guards, I think there were maybe half a dozen, all fell against the back wall. They all just kind of rushed to the back wall, and had wide eyes. Fortunately, none of them were
Armed.
or if they were, they hadn't pulled their weapons out yet. But it was Vietnam War, so I would think they probably didn't really expect tourists.
No, not in the middle of nowhere there.
Here it was. They probably had watched the video, be on the lookout for something like this. And I finally, in the silence, I finally said, can you tell me where is Seadrift? And they said, it's about 15 miles. And now I said, is that by road or by water? And they said, that's by road. And I said, okay, I'm in a canoe. How do I get there by water? So they said, well, get in this barge canal, and when you get to the bay, take a left, and you'll be there. And so I said, well, what about that big stinky pond?
The lagoon.
And they said, whatever you do, don't get in that.
Oh, my gosh.
So anyway, I've often wondered if that's what's wrong with us. Jim and I both have muscular dystrophy. Anyway, but it was a long night, and I rode all night long. Jim paddled and complained. He wanted to stop, but the mosquitoes were so bad. I said, Jim, this is not the place to stop. So we just kept going, and we finally came out into the bay, which we weren't very far at all from the finish line, but we didn't know how far. We knew it's probably to the left. I said it's about go left. But the waves, it was rough. The barge canal had been very slick, very nice.
Yeah, that's way better than being in the bay in that section.
Nice sculling. But we noticed that the wind was blowing hard enough that there really weren't very many mosquitoes. So we just set up camp. We slept right there until the sun was high. And we had plenty of time. Like I said, I think you had until Thursday. So it was probably, I don't know if it was Tuesday, probably Tuesday morning. And we got up and either rowed or paddled in. I'm not sure which. By then we were probably sick of rowing.
Did you have some sort of tarp or something for the bay? Like what was your...
I think we did. I think we had a really good spray cover that a guy named Mitch Pena had built for us. He was a sail maker. And it was top notch. I mean, unfortunately, it would also hold you in when you turned over. I mean, I don't know if it had zippers. I think it had a waterproof zipper or something, but it was tied around your waist. And I remember we had taken it to Galveston to the surf to try it out. And we had paddled out a ways, and a big wave had turned us over. And neither one of us could get out for quite some time. We were both floundering and trying to get out of the boat. So we learned that you've got to be ready to unzip that zipper.
Yeah, except your hands don't work so well by that point in the safari.
But it was a good cover. I guess that's what we used, and we weren't going to try to scull in those waves.
Did it snap onto the boat or how did it? It
did. I think it was made very similar to the way we built
spray
cover, and very tight.
That's cool.
It was made of like sail material, very waterproof. It was a great cover.
Who would have thought back in '68 you'd have modern technology?
The lights didn't work, but the cover was great. And I do remember we paddled in, and we were in such good shape and felt so good because we had slept all night, that we impressed the heck out of all the guys that were there. It was like, you guys look better than any of us. Anyway, but we took care of that. We ate some hardhead, and then we started feeling just like they did.
Ew.
So, anyway, but it was a good year. It was good to finish. That was our first safari to make it to the finish line.
Well, I mean, it was just your second safari.
Second safari.
And you were what, 17 and Uncle Jim was 18?
Yep, that would have been my age. Yeah.
Pretty incredible.
Yeah.
Y'all had gotten a lot more under your belt since your first year with the whole...
Thanks to Fred Hurd.
You figured out a lot of stuff in a short amount of time.
It was really Fred Hurd did wonders. I mean, we used to feel like if we made it through a rapid, after ricocheting off every rock in the rapid, and we were still upright, it was a victory. And Fred used to paddle wooden canvas canoes through whitewater and never touch a rock.
Wow.
And he told us, he said, Tom, when you touch a rock, you've blown it. And he really would. He would back paddle and go very slowly through rapids, always in control, and he can run that wooden canvas boat right through. So,
wow,
an amazing guy. He also was an alligator hunter. Back in those days, it was legal to shoot him, but he would shoot him with a bow and arrow. So,
oh wow,
he was just quite the fella.
Sounds like a character.
Really, really neat guy. Yeah.
All right. Well, anything else you can think of from the '68 safari?
Hard-headed on a stick. That's the way to go.
That's pretty memorable.
Yeah, that stands out.
All right. Thanks. Okay.